So, most of you know me as Gail Bear, a member of the Grafman Endowment Board and chair of the Legacy Luncheons. But today, I am Ed McMahon, and I want to welcome all of you to a very special version of The Tonight Show, starring our own Johnny Carson, Dr. Michael Sag. Johnny's special guest today is our new Cantor Robbie Wittner, who many of you have probably not had a chance to get to know. But today, you are really going to get to know him. So, without further ado, here's Johnny.
All right. Welcome. I've got my mask down because I'm within 12 feet of people around me. It's so great to be here. Wow. What has COVID done to us? Holy smokes, we got masks, we got wigs, all kinds of things going on here that are crazy. It's really gotten weird out there.
How weird is it?
I want to tell you, it's so weird that I saw a guy get arrested in a bank for not wearing a mask. That's how weird it is. It's crazy out there. The other thing I saw the other day that I thought was a little strange was a guy walks into a bar carrying an alligator. It's alligator. He lays the alligator up on the bar and he says, "Hey, Mr. Bartender, do you serve lawyers in here?" And he said, "Why, we sure do." He goes, "All right, I'll have a beer and give me a lawyer from Alligator." All right, we got a great show tonight. Our own Cantor, Robbie Wittner, is here, so we're going to not take a commercial break. We're just going to go right into it. So I'm going to go behind the desk and introduce to you Cantor, Robbie Wittner. Welcome. We're going to have our distance, get our masks. Gosh, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Welcome to the show. A lot of wild, weird, wacky stuff going on. It's crazy. You came down to Birmingham with the COVID. Did you bring it?
I hope not, but I did go hotspot to hotspot, yeah.
Yeah, I bet you did. So you started in New York, and that's where you were born, right?
Yes, in Washington Heights.
Washington Heights. Does anybody know Washington Heights? I mean, there was a play, right? Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Yes, sir.
And were you in the play?
I was not.
Okay.
But it would have been fun.
It would have been great. You could have sang and probably danced both at the same time.
My dancing's not top notch, but.
All right. So tell us about your family. Parents?
Sure. So both of my parents grew up in Washington Heights, and on my mom's side, my grandparents also grew up in New York City. My dad's parents were born in Germany and were able to get out, thank God, Bezrat Hashem, before the Holocaust really started, and made their way to New York. And my parents met through the synagogue at Hebrew Tabernacle in Washington Heights. So.
The old Hebrew Tabernacle, is that related to the one that makes the giant salamis, the Hebrew Tabernacle salamis?
Not.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. And does the, what can you tell me of your childhood about, you remember going to services, what was it like?
It was a very classical Reform style. We had kind of the Protestant-esque setup in terms of the two pulpits being raised up for the cantor, and it's very German-styled service, and as the vast majority of the congregation was made up of Holocaust survivors and their descendants.
That's interesting.
So it was a very unique experience there. And
so things like Kol Nidre, I would imagine with Holocaust survivors had special meaning, I would guess.
Absolutely. So it was probably not as meaningful to me as a little child as it would come to be at this point, but it was very meaningful to the congregation.
That's awesome. So I'm trying to think, we were talking earlier before the show, and you were telling me about, you have a younger sister, is that right?
Yes.
And that something about you and flies, that you don't get along. Is it just the maggots or is it the flies?
Oh, it's all of the above.
Okay. So tell us about that one story when your mom had to manage you and your sister at the same time.
long story short, when my sister had just been born and we were headed up to my grandparents' house in upstate New York, and we pulled over to the side of the road, and a fly got in the car, and I did not like it and sort of had a little meltdown, and my mom, just seeing what was about to happen, put her hands out in front of me, and I just vomited right into her hands.
Great.
And I still don't like flies.
No towel and
right. We were really, basically on the side of the road, and she had nothing to wipe her hands on, so she got out down to the street and just wiped her hands on and kept driving. So that's a true mom right there.
It sounds fun. I think we all can relate. We were driving. You guys were in the back seat.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and trying to look at you guys in the mirror, and you're freaking out, and your sister's probably crying, and she has to pull up. Yeah, sounds horrible. So you went through sort of elementary school and junior high school, and then you went to high school at Hunter. Is that right?
I did, but I actually went to elementary, and I went pre-K to 12 at Hunter.
Wow, I didn't know they had that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no pre-K at Hunter anymore, but it's still kindergarten.
Did you have to take an entrance exam to get in there?
I did. It's a little bit of an absurd thing for a 3-year-old to take an IQ test, but that's what happened.
And put blocks together, or they just made you sing?
I don't believe there was any singing, but I think you had to take an IQ test. I don't remember it at all. But then the components that the school actually gave you were, they did a little interview with two of the administrators, I guess, and they were really just looking to see that you are someone who is comfortable speaking with adults and that you're creative in some way. I believe the one question that I remember them asking, which if I said it today would not go over well as an adult, but they asked, if you could change one thing about your home, what would it be? And as a 4-year-old or whatever I was, I said, I would put a refrigerator under my bed so I never had to get out of bed. And they loved it. They thought it was super creative.
That's actually creative, yeah.
And then they had you play with other kids and just see that you're social. And apparently I'm social. No.
That's great. So Hunter High School, is that the same? You grew up in Washington Heights. That's where Lin-Manuel Miranda's from.
Yes.
Didn't he also go to that high school?
He did. I don't believe he went to the elementary school, but I could be wrong. But he definitely
the high school.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a personal encounter with him besides just growing up in the same neighborhood years later, I guess.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
When I was in 7th grade, could have been 8th, but I believe it was 7th grade, our teacher was sick for about a week, and Lin-Manuel Miranda was our substitute English teacher. And I don't remember much about learning from him, but I do remember him trying to he had the whole class guess what his name was, his first name.
Oh.
So it starts with an L, and then everybody guessed for
Larry.
10 minutes, and nobody could figure out Lynn. So
yeah,
but that's the only thing I really remember, except that he's a nice guy. And
yeah, that's awesome. So that was before he wrote In the Heights, or I guess maybe at the time he was writing.
He was probably writing it, yeah.
Yeah. So typical bohemian, starving artist.
Yeah.
Maybe not so starving anymore. So to keep with that theme, to me, your whole, as I've learned about you, just kind of getting ready for this, your whole life is filled with Beshert. I mean, that seems to be a common theme. So one of them is you grow up in Washington Heights. That's where Lin-Manuel is. You go to his high school. He substitute teaches there. And then share with everybody the name of the college you went to.
I went to Hamilton College.
I rest my case.
And he actually, before Hamilton came out, he came to Hamilton College to premiere some of the music, which not many people know, I guess.
Yeah.
But, so I've run into him many times, and in the neighborhood.
So literally, he came to Hamilton College to premiere some of Hamilton, just checking it out on the road.
So I think the whole context was that Hamilton's 200-year anniversary as a school was occurring, and they asked him to come speak, knowing that was coming in the near future. I guess.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So while you're at Hamilton, in high school you ran track.
I did. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it sounds like you were pretty kind of on the straight and narrow. You didn't drink alcohol much when you were in high school, like Some people do. I wouldn't imagine anybody I knew who did that. But so you go to Hamilton, and your first day in college, it's about a week before school starts, and you go to a party. So Tell us what happens there.
So I got to a party, and someone I knew handed me a beer, and I didn't have a beer, but I was sipping, nursing a beer, probably half of a beer for half an hour or an hour, because I had not been introduced to beer yet.
Were you using a straw? I mean, what were...
No, it was just disgusting. So,
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it was Coors Light or something, but basically, I got through about half a beer. I said to myself, this is very unhealthy. I need to run it off. And so I decided I would take an entire lap of the campus. But unfortunately, carbonation does something to your stomach, and about halfway through my run, I got to the football field and
hurled.
Hurled, yes.
Yeah, okay. So now we're seeing another thing. We've got Beshert, we've got Lin-Manuel Miranda, and we've got hurling. That seems to be a theme here.
Well, hopefully not anymore.
Oh, amen. Yeah, I love that. Uh-oh, is that you calling me? Oh, it's spam. Okay, great. So you finish Hamilton, but in your a big thing happens in your last 3 weeks there.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about that.
So long story short, I met my wife about 3 weeks before we graduated. Each of us had known the other all through our 4 years of college in terms of who the other person was through reputation. She did theater, I did music. We had many overlapping mutual friends, but we had never had a conversation, though she had actually auditioned for my a cappella group and did not get in.
You cut her.
She's still bitter about that.
I don't blame her.
But we met at a party about 3 weeks before we graduated, and she complimented me on an opera I had been singing in, and I complimented her. I'd seen her in a theater production, and we hit it off. And the infamous part of the story is that she went home, but she had told me where she lived. We were in a dorm building, and we bonded over. One of my best friends lived in the same line. It was the biggest apartment line in the complex.
I see.
And so I knew where she was, so I went to her door, and I just wrote on her whiteboard on her door my number, and we got together later that week. And
I mean, imagine a whiteboard. All right. I mean, now we got text, whiteboard. It's almost like
text at the time.
It's like a rotary phone. Who uses a whiteboard anymore? So now here comes back to the Beshert. For people who don't know, what's your wife's name? Alexandra Hamilton. I mean, what is going on here? Washington Heights, Lin-Manuel High School, Hamilton College, and then you marry somebody named Alexandera. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, it's close. Yeah. Alexand. Yeah, that's part of the song. So immediately after that, you knew all through college you're going to be a Cantor, and off you go to Cantor school, right?
Not quite. I was pre-med in college, and to be perfectly honest, it was mostly because I had no idea what I was going to do in life, and my favorite TV show was Scrubs, and thus I was pre-med. But really, I spent much more time in college engaged in music than science, despite spending a lot of time in the science center. So when I graduated, I had gotten to the point at which I finished all my pre-med required classes, but I didn't believe that it was the right path for me. And the summer after I graduated, I ran into my synagogue president, and the cantor was going to be out of town the next weekend, and he asked me to lead services, and I said, I can do it, but I haven't been to synagogue in 4 years. So if you're willing to teach me, I'm up for it. And I had a wonderful time leading services after he prepared me. And it still took about a year and a half of working a desk job to realize that was a dead end, and I needed to figure something out quickly. So.
All right, so I'm going back to this Beshert thing. I mean, come on. You're at this desk job. You don't necessarily have a defined path. A lot of people are like that. That's not new. But here you're just casually walking down the street and you bump into a guy who runs a synagogue and says, hey, you want to sing at services?
Yeah. And he's the kind of person, he's still a friend of mine and a mentor of sorts in the musical department. And he's the kind of person who always says, when we're about to try something new, he's like, we're going to laugh about this in 5 years, about how far we've come. And he said that at the time, and I shrugged him off, basically, because I was like, of course I'm not going to be a cantor. But then, things happen.
It's like the Bruce Springsteen, someday we'll look back on this and it will all seem funny, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So there's one thing that also, so you went, while you were in Hamilton, I want to come back to that real quick. You were singing in a choir, and the choir gets invited to go to Italy, right?
Yep.
That's pretty cool. It's like instead of junior year abroad, it's it's choir abroad for a week.
It was wonderful, yeah.
Yeah. And so tell us about what it was like for you on that trip, especially when you went to Venice.
So the real story is Venice. It was a wonderful trip. We had fantastic food, friends, music, and all these wonderful cathedrals. And especially, before I get to Venice, just an especially endearing story that there was a pastor, or probably a priest, given that it was Italy, a priest in Italy, who defied the regime of the time and defied the Nazis and I can't remember the exact story, but he was put in prison and he wrote a lullaby for his kids. And I don't remember how we knew about it, but the choir learned that lullaby. And when we were in Italy, we visited that small town and we sang it for the kids.
Oh my God.
And it was gorgeous and everybody was crying, including myself.
Yeah.
Great experience. Then when we got to Italy, sort of the opposite, funny story. We went out to dinner and everybody...
This is in Venice.
This is in Venice,
yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the choir, everybody in the choir decided they were going to go find a club. And I said, I'm tired. I've had a decent amount to drink. I'm just going to...
You had a half a beer, which is sort of your max.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to go home. We were like a 2-block walk from our hotel. So I decided I would walk back, and perhaps I had more than a little bit to drink. And
3/4 of a beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I walked past our hotel and kept walking and could not find it. And an hour later, I'm coming back to being a normal functioning human being. I'm in the middle of some island in Venice that's like a residential area. I have no idea where I am.
It's raining.
Pouring rain,
Yeah.
yes. I don't know what the name of my hotel is, so I'm totally lost and confused, and after wandering around for a little longer and kind of getting freaked out, I just sat down on a dock and waited until sun to come.
So you and Otis Redding just hung out on the dock by the bay.
Dock of the bay.
In this case, there's a dock by the canal.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
so morning comes, the sun comes up, you didn't sleep.
I did not sleep at all. It was pouring rain.
Yep.
And I stood up, I started walking, I just was like exhausted, and I was looking for some sort of refuge, and I saw some sort of like overhang over the entrance to a building, and I said, I'm going in that building no matter what it is. I get to it.
Time out. Now, you've heard his life story so far. Anybody want to take just a random guess as to what that awning was covering? It was?
My hotel.
I mean, come on. Walks down the street, bumps into a guy, starts to sing in a synagogue, goes to Lin-Manuel Miranda's high school, he teaches a class. Born in Washington Heights, marries somebody named Alexandra, and his musical Hamilton is his college. I mean, I'm blown away. And then ends up in his hotel, which was right there the whole time. Maybe you're like Dorothy with the ruby slippers. All you do is click your heels and you're back at your hotel.
No place like hotel.
Exactly. All right. So I guess the final thing, you went to Israel for your 1 year, and it was great.
Oh, it was fantastic.
And I mean, that's one thing. I mean, maybe I should have been a rabbi or a cantor, because I'd just like to spend the year in Israel, and maybe then I could drop out or something.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
But it was a good time, and
yeah, I've developed a lot of close friendships there. I mean, some of my classmates in Israel came back to New York with me, and we're still very good friends. But some also went to the LA campus, and we're still in touch. We play Dungeons and Dragons together, weekly.
And you sip on a beer while you do that through a straw.
Only half a beer.
Only half a beer. Okay. So those of you who know Johnny Carson well know that he does things. Last time we did Karnak. This time we're going to do, since it's a cantor, we're going to do, instead of stump the band, we're going to do stump the cantor. Are you game?
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. All right. So we just need somebody to yell out from the audience a song that maybe the rabbi or the cantor knows or doesn't know.
Auld Lang Syne.
Auld Lang Syne. You know the song?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
Let's hear it.
I know a man, his name is Lang, and he has a neon sign. This Mr. Lang, he's very old, so we call it Auld Lang Syne.
Bravo! Yes, that's the one, isn't it? Okay.
It's close.
We'll keep going?
Yeah, no, I don't know the rest.
No, but I mean another song.
Yeah, let's go.
All right, anybody?
Jewish Christmas carol.
A Jewish Christmas carol.
I'm not sure I've got that one in mind.
I know one.
I bet you do.
Okay. Okay. God bless you, Jerry Mendelbaum. Have nothing you this May. This May you had a rotten month, so what is there to say? Next hope next May is better, and good things will come your way, and you won't have a feeling of dismay next May. There's one. This is all Curtis. Thank you. I'm here to sort of contribute. We have time for one more.
One more.
We'll see if we can get this one.
Sure.
Okay?
Timex.
A commercial.
Timex.
A Timex commercial.
Yes.
Timex commercial.
I think you've stumped me there, but
You don't
I bet
know
you have it.
You think I do? But you don't have a Timex commercial?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Huh. Let's see. This is also from Alan Sherman, and we'll start wrapping up with this one. So, my grandfather's watch was the best ever made by the Timex company, just like it was shown on camera Swayze persuade last night on the old TV. Oh, it worked underwater so perfectly, and it still made a ticking sound, which my grandfather tried only this afternoon, and that's how the old man drowned. Yep, all right, great.
Probably a good commercial.
Yeah, it worked. So, this has gone by very nicely, but I really do want to give you a minute or two or five or whatever you want to take just to kind of tell folks any kind of message you want. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'd just like to take a minute to thank the Graftman Endowment for having me here today, and our Johnny Carson, Mike Sag. He was wonderful. Let's give him another round of applause. And all of our wonderful ladies from the Endowment, Jan Blitz, Ginger Held, and Gail Bayer.
Yeah,
Thank you for being here.
Bravo.
Thank you.
I also wanted to say that the Grafman Endowment has been instrumental in bringing me here to become your cantor. When I visited down here, of course, the first thing I was drawn to was the wonderful, warm community that you have here, and I have experienced nothing less since coming here, been embraced with open arms, and I hope to continue that as we move together in our relationship. But I was also told all about the Grafman Endowment by our wonderful Jan Blitz, and the things she told me were so attractive that I was endowed with the Engel Cantorial Chair if I were to take this position, which I'd like to thank the Engel family for that. It's a wonderful privilege and honor to be the Engel Cantorial Chair, and also just how much it means to have the resources to put on any sort of musical program that we'd like. Of course, we haven't been able to do that given the state of the world just yet, but I'm hoping in the very near future, hopefully this next spring, maybe a follow-up to this event, where we'll be able to provide some entertainment and music, and I'll get to know you better. But they're just the resources and the limits are endless. There is no limit. The sky's the limit. Something of that nature. We're going to be putting together so many beautiful programs, and I'll be working in conjunction with everybody at the at the Graftman Endowment, and I'm just looking forward to getting to know you all so much better, and thank you so much for having me.
Great. Wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks, Robbie. Good afternoon. I am Ginger Held, President of the Graftman Endowment Fund. First of all, Michael, we want to thank you for providing us with a snapshot of our new cantor Beyond the Bema. We are grateful that CNN, NBC, and ABC allowed you to give Temple some of your time so we could enjoy your unique style of getting to know our cantor. We can see stand-up comedy in your future. We just first want you and your team to find a cure or a vaccination for COVID-19 so that we can all be together soon. Thank you, Robbie, for being such a good sport. We are so fortunate to have you and Alex join our Temple family. Temple Emanu-El has positioned itself through its dynamic clergy to continue to be a beacon of goodness and light in our Birmingham community. We look forward to your beautiful voice, Cantor, leading us through our spiritual journey for many years to come. I would also like to thank Gail Bayer, our chair of this event, once again this year. This is not the way we envisioned this program, but 2020 continues to provide us with so many firsts. And I would also like to thank Jason Ruha and his film expertise for helping to put together a wonderful production so that all of you could enjoy our program virtually at home. In normal times, we would conclude our program by joining together to have lunch and visit with each other in Abrams Hall. Although we are not together, I trust you will soon be enjoying your lunch in the comfort of your home or office. So, Robbie, I would love for you to lead us in the motzi before we conclude, and I have some bread for you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Amen.
Thank you.
Bravo.
That's a wrap.